Hi. So here we are, it's the full moon today. We are Friday the 13th. Welcome to my astrology and tarot forecast and meditation on the energies. I'm glad that you are here to join me for this opportunity to collectively raise the vibrations. I don't know about anybody else, but this week started off really difficult for me. I found myself submerged in self-doubt, and I've been making a lot of serious decisions about my future and my whereabouts and what I plan to do with myself. And a lot of it has been massive ego struggles of feeling disempowered by things that I have done in my past that I still have to face and move through, and in order to do so I will need to find a lot of inner courage. And all of these things that we've been talking about for the past couple of videos are very much in alignment with this energy. The full moon in Pisces, of course, is the ultimate culmination of this clearance. I see it very much in correlation with the Pisces Mercury retrograde that began in March of this year. It was a very, very deeply emotionally turbulent and murky period of time for many people, where we were trying very hard to find our footing, and it was like being in a river with right after a storm, where the water is rushing so fast that you can't actually keep your feet on the ground, and you can't see the waterbed because it's dirty, filled with mud and sand and sediments, and those things we have been essentially filtering out for the bulk of the last 6 months. Hard to believe that it has been 6 months, but we are actually coming into the final leg of 2019. What a year! What a year. So not only as we move through this full moon energy, which I will be going into the gifts of this because it's actually a really, really wonderful time, we're also looking, as we discussed last week, at Saturn turning direct, stationary direct, because it takes a while for a planet to actually move forward in the way that we perceive it anyway, in terms of calculations of movements. But because Saturn has been retrograde since the end of April of this year, we have literally been facing our concept of time and how we are affected by time. And because it was a retrograde, you may have been feeling a little bit like everything about your life in this period, essentially the last 4 months, 5 months, has been about introspection and retrospective thinking, and almost feeling constantly as if we want to dive back into the past for comfort, for answers, for security, for entertainment. It could be that you wanted to watch old series or films, familiarity. And the push of this energy has been all about letting go of that, preparing ourselves to let go of that. So much of that is, it's so deep-rooted in us that our insecurities get attached to the idea that in the past, well, we've already done those things. So we know that we've survived them. We know that we've overcome them. We know what the lessons are that we've learned from them, hopefully, if we've been living consciously. And that can become very, very comfortable when there are energies like the ones we're currently undergoing, where emotions have to be purged and let go of. And as Saturn moves into its stationary direct position next week, what we're going to be experiencing is a 2-month period of time before it actually goes fully direct, where we may feel that time has stopped in many ways. Essentially, it's a great opportunity for us to slow down and take a good hard look at our feelings about where we are now in our lives and what we want to accomplish going forward, having integrated the lessons emotionally, financially, spiritually, most of all. And how does this process of having been forced to go deep inside of our subconscious mind in order to go through all this sediment and the filth and the dirt and the unresolved matters, we have to, how are we taking stock of that right now? Is that what this is all about? That we actually get the opportunity finally, with the clarity through this full moon going into that Saturn stationary direct, the reality is that I feel that what we're going to accomplish is a sense of dropping the baggage that no longer serves us. And Saturn will essentially be making sure that we don't have any choice in that. That once those bags have been dropped, it may take a little while to feel how much lighter we really are, but at the same time, the path is going to open up as a result of this lightness of being. So, I think there's something deeply psychological about this energy. If we look back to human bonding, if we look back to the way that we were nurtured as babies and as children, and of course none of us really has the ability to recall exactly how that was, but in looking at the characteristics of our primary caregivers and the way that we experienced our relationship with them subsequently throughout life, we have many clues that allow us to interpret how these things may have affected us. Now, in order to not be dogged down by the deep psychological wounding that some people may carry with them, it can be very helpful to actually look at the way that these bonds perhaps went wrong. There's certainly no blame intended in the way that we look at our parental bonds or our primary caregiver bonds. But at the same time, you have to understand that everyone, until they are willing to face trauma, will reintegrate and repeat trauma cycles intergenerationally. So when we look at attachment development, boundary development, mirroring development, the type of security that we feel when we're developing, the type of nurturing that we receive, can fundamentally change the way that our entire lives are experienced. And when we get to this point of the energies that we're in now, this is a huge opportunity to recognize how much work we've actually consciously done in order to move through the deprogramming of our deeper traumas, but also then to realize that the baggage that we are dropping and that the universe is giving us the opportunity to move beyond is no longer purposeful. And this is the biggest alleviation that any of us can possibly experience in life, is to understand that we have created our own traps, our own prisons, our own existential angst. We feed it by repeating these cycles of manifesting reactions and behavioral responses in our lives that are conditioned by trauma. And everyone has trauma. This is not something that is unique to people who are victims of obvious abuse. And again, that's why I say that blame is rarely useful in resolving and healing. But at the same time, acknowledgement is also absolutely fundamental. Excuse me. And it tells us how conditional or unconditional we are able to behave towards ourselves and, of course, subsequently other people. How do we treat ourselves? It's a huge question, and probably one that, if we answer honestly, we can look back on our lives and realize that we haven't really treated ourselves particularly well. In going through these healing cycles astrologically, as this year has essentially been, we learn to understand the absolute essence of self-parenting. So many people get stuck in the idea that mommy and daddy did this to me and therefore I am this way. And when we're younger and more immature emotionally, this makes perfect sense, and it's a normal way for us to individuate and to subconsciously seek the pathways to repairing the things that we weren't able to manifest as a result of whatever the circumstances were that caused the stunting of growth. Coming into that place of self-parenting essentially means self-love, and it means the ability to no longer live within the realm of negative self-talk. So first and foremost, it's important to recognize where we are repeating unhealthy behaviors that are rooted in our childhood. And very often we have to look at ourselves and actually question whether we have become a version of our abusers or our those who negatively impacted us consciously or unconsciously. Many of us become versions of what we subconsciously or consciously resent. Bullies are very often victims, or were victims. That's a prime example of that. But also, the empath can become the narcissist. And when we understand better how narcissist-empath relationships function, we understand that the empath, as much as the empath would like to see themselves as sort of faultless, and very often falls into victimhood, the fact of the matter is that the empath also has to take responsibility for seeking nurturing and validation through behaviors that are covert. In other words, the empath very often is somebody who has not taken the time to develop the skills to be able to take ownership of their needs, and therefore seeks out the narcissist's approval and permission without actually ever expressing their need, through fear of the repercussions of the narcissist's control mechanism, essentially causing us to fall into a reactive cycle. Now, this is not for everyone, but I'm pretty sure that it's, on some level, there's a universality to the dynamic of the empath-narcissist relationship, as all relationships also, when in disarray or imbalance, fall into the rescuer-victim cycle. Very often we flip-flop in these relationships in life. So, anyway, this is an extremely long way of expressing what these energies, I believe, are all about, particularly with this full moon in Pisces. We are letting go. It is an emotional purge. We are actually going into the deepest, darkest recesses of our minds and sort of maybe seeing some last dusty spots or whatever that we need to clear out in whichever way we can. But more importantly, looking into these dark corners of our minds and realizing that we've done the work and that actually it's pretty clean in there. And all we have to do now is turn on the light. Turn on the light by knowing our power, facing the reality of what fear is and how fear is fundamentally a waste of space. It serves no purpose, because what we fear we probably have to experience anyway, and we may as well do it in lightness and joy. Before I get into the reading, I wanted to share some thoughts that came to me in meditation. You can call them channeled messages, you can call them intuition, whatever you want. I believe in esoteric magic, and when we get into the reading this week, I think we're going to see that, because I actually did a Celtic Cross reading that I pulled before filming, because I wanted to be able to meditate on the cards and see where they were leading. And here are some of the messages that came through, and some of them are sort of obvious mantras to go by, and others who the fuck knows where they came from. But anyway, we came from that just now. Know your power, have no fear, release worry, it's a waste of precious time, let go of stalemate, talk to nature, strength in numbers, and I saw shifts of energy that were like dominoes, but like pillows, domino pillows. Pay attention to the grains you're consuming. I think that a lot of us think that we're supposed to be on a high grain diet, but we don't actually pay attention to the fact that some of us are actually highly sensitive to certain grains, and I don't know why that came through, but it did. Be impeccable with your word. That's important. Oh, hi, Henry. Be impeccable with your word. Always a good one. Embrace the strange. Be goofy. That's something that I definitely need to work on, because I have become deathly serious, and I am not a serious person, trust me. Yes? What is it? I'm very busy, Henry. Can't you see? What else? Break the shell knowing that your protection lies in the elements. I guess that comes down to the talking with nature part. Oh, and there was one that came through that I'm sure was just like my subconscious mind forcing me to say something absolutely ridiculous, but it goes with the goofiness. But the message came through that masturbation is futile. That's not what the message really is meant to be, but you know, it is actually interesting, and I'm certainly not going into that topic, but I'm sure many of you are aware of the whole no-fap movement, which I also actually read this week, that many women were joining the no-fap movement. I don't know a lot of women that have ever expressed that they have an issue with chronic masturbation or with pornography. Oh, that's not true. I actually know somebody who once confided in me that she masturbated 7 times a day, and that was very disturbing to me. Not because you shouldn't masturbate 7 times a day, I guess. If you, well, no, you probably shouldn't. That seems really weird. Anyway, moving on. That has nothing to do with anything, but that was the message that came through. So if you're masturbating a lot and finding that you're wasting your time, probably time to think about changing that up. And on that note, I think we shall move on to this week's tarot reading. So, here we go with this week's tarot reading. What we pulled is Page of Cups and the 9 of Cups as our central energy. Now, to me, this essentially is, if you look at the Page of Cups, there's a fish in that cup, and what did we say earlier? It is the full moon in Pisces. Now, obviously Pisces is, the Pisces symbol is the double fish, and again, if we really look at this, water always represents in the tarot, and pretty much all mystical teachings, the subconscious mind. And it's about flow. And this, to me, speaks of the subconscious mind coming into full flow and alignment. If you actually look, again, the page's hat looks like the fish. It's almost like a continuation. And so the idea is that the moon in Pisces is giving us this enormous gift and this ability to integrate our subconscious minds, as we were talking about last week, into our conscious existence. That this is actually time for that to happen. And the 9 of Cups is the wish card, it is the fulfillment card, it is, as you can see from that, dude sitting there. Self-satisfaction, not in an obnoxious way, but in a balanced way. And being able to go into the world knowing that what we have is secure, is fully understood. In the past, we have the Ten of Swords. Now, the Ten of Swords really is about the ending of a cycle. It looks absolutely horrific. I can't even imagine what it would be like to have 10 swords in your back, literally, but maybe we've experienced it figuratively before. Something that I've learned about this card is that when we look at that horizon, that dark, dark sky, and those clouds may seem a little foreboding, but the reality is that water is actually really calm. Again, the subconscious mind. And we have the sunset, or the sunrise, rather, probably, in the distance, showing that a new day is dawning. And if you look at the man who has got the 10 swords in his back, who's laying on the ground, and you look at his hand, that symbol of the way that he's holding or crossing his finger is the same symbol that we see, I believe, in the Hierophant card, the Pope. And it is the card, it's the symbol of that what we see is not all that there is. In other words, that we have reached this place of reckoning where we have integrated our subconscious processes into our conscious life, and now what we have to face in our life is the unseen. There is a new cycle of challenges, and I think that's really beautiful, that what we see is not all that is. It means that there is mystery and adventure and magic on the horizon. Also, our underlying past energy is the very dreary Eight of Swords. And take a good look at her, because again, I think I'd actually rather have the 10 swords in my back than be her. Look at the water again. Look at what she's doing. She's standing in the water, so with a blindfold on, no less. And albeit it's very shallow water, but it's the idea of trepidation, of being in that space of the subconscious mind and not having ownership of it, not understanding where we're coming from, not understanding why our feelings and our emotions make us act and experience things in a certain way. She's the ultimate victim, because at the end of the day, it doesn't really look as though it'd be that hard for her to like tear off that like ribbon thing around her that's keeping her repressed. And those 8 swords around her actually represent knowledge. They represent opportunities for her to move beyond, but she's staying there. And from other readers that I watch, I've learned that, you know, what we can look at the 8 of Swords as being is the I'm too fat, I'm too old, I'm too ugly, I don't have enough money, I can't do this, I can't do that. It's the I can't card. It's the making myself small card. And the reality is, we do that to ourselves. And thank goodness it's in the past. The underlying past, which essentially means that this entire reading is actually coming from that kernel. In the future, we have the Nine of Pentacles. The Nine of Pentacles, as you can see, is somebody who is reveling in their fullness and their bountifulness. They have perfect balance in their life. They have everything that they need at their fingertips. Grapes, coins, nature, a lovely house on a hill in the distance. The sun is beaming in the background, causing a beautiful golden aura to appear. And that, having a bird on your hand, I guess for some people would be the symbol of everything. I'm sure it's meant to be symbolic of the idea that the bird also could is free to go whenever, but chooses to be where he or she is. So that's a pretty nice energy to have in our future. What crowns us, however, which is related to the future, is this. This is essentially speaking of the obstacles that we put in our own way. The Five of Wands is a card of quarrel, squabble, and coming from this place and feeling the need to do this in order to get to this. And that is simply not true. And this reading essentially is telling us once and for all that all of this is inside our minds. That subconscious mind turmoil needs to be let go of. And we need to focus on being more like this. Because we create that for ourselves. We create the conflict. We create... Most inner turmoil manifests as aggression, violence, self-protection, insecurity, depression, negativity. All of the things that we don't actually want to feel or experience essentially come from inner turmoil. And this whole reading and all of these astrological energies basically point to letting that go once and for all. The present energy is the Four of Swords. Oh, sorry, I've got my hand on that person's head, probably helping them to sleep by blocking out the light. As you can see, this Four of Swords dude, I think that's the guy. Well, I guess it could be either, whatever, in this day and age, who cares? He's resting. He's resting his mind. His swords are hung up on the wall. If you look, there's 3 on the wall, and if you consider what the Three of Swords is, the card of heartache and, again, inner turmoil from negative emotions and difficult cycles, they're hung up in contemplation mode. He's contemplating those 3 swords, and his 4th sword, which one could look at as the Ace of Swords, the opportunity, the truth bomb, the truth slayer, the inspiration, the access, whatever it is that cuts through that 3 of Swords energy. He's lying on that, taking a rest until he's ready to go out into the world with that Ace of Swords and slay in a good way. And of course you have that beautiful stained glass window that shows generosity, blessings. In our environments we have the Lover's card. Now, again, when I was younger, I used to think that the Lover's card systematically meant that I was going to meet somebody and have some kind of ludicrous, irrational, romantic encounter. which I used to crave very much, as most people do. But what we realize ultimately about the Lovers is that it is a card of balance. Again, the inner and the outer worlds being balanced. It's generally, it represents a choice, but as I've said before, the choice is not real because we know what we love. And so therefore, if we know what we love, there is no choice because logically we should be doing what we love. So essentially, that is what it's all about. It is realizing that Eden is here, that we live in Eden, and that if we do what we love and we stay true to that path, then we get this and this and not this or this or ending up like this. In our hopes and fears, we have the 8 of Wands, and the 8 of Wands here, I would say in hopes and fears, is that we are fearful of the momentum of fast movement based on needing to make decisions. It can also represent a lot of incoming communication, unanticipated communication, not necessarily in a bad way, but maybe if we're still coming from this insecure place and we have all of this inner turmoil, we find ourselves in the position where we are fearful of changes, of forward movement, of messages, because we think that they are going to carry doom and gloom and things that we can't be in control of. But again, if we're doing what we love and we're aiming to continue on a path towards doing what we love, because I know it's not always easy for us to just do whatever we love all the time, then this cannot be eclipsed by this. This is a good thing. It's actually more in alignment with this. That fish in the cup, that gift of knowledge, of knowing that when we stand tall and we know ourselves and we love ourselves and we have full awareness and we're in alignment with ourselves, whatever comes in this shape or form, whether new or anchored in the past, is a good thing. It's the opportunity either to resolve something or the opportunity to have a new experience, to expand ourselves so that we can go through that process once again of diving deep into the subconscious, sorting all the information out, and then coming out on top with the knowledge, the empowerment, in order to keep breaking down the hurdles, the obstacles, and all of those things we were talking about in the beginning of this video, of being stuck in patterns, cycles, behaviors that are conditioned by things that we need to let go of. Our outcome is the Strength card. I love this card. It's the Leo card. And it is the number 8, which is also the card of infinite energy and balance. And the Strength card sort of speaks for itself, but because I always take 2 clarifiers on the outcome card, we have the 6 of Wands, which is the card of victory and being celebrated and having people around us who appreciate us and love us and see our strengths and our values and our worth and want us to be up on that horse. They don't want to pull us off that horse so that we have to feel bad like they might if they had wanted to pull us off the horse. Instead, they feel good because they're able to celebrate somebody else's victory and strength. And the wonderful Star card, The star being the wish fulfillment card, but when we speak of wish fulfillment, it's really looking at that balance again of what we've already spoken about in terms of the Nine of Pentacles and the Nine of Cups. These are cards of balance. If you watch what she's doing, not only is she naked, so she's that comfortable and secure in herself, but she is pouring her knowledge from her subconscious mind and her conscious mind into the pool of the subconscious, and then also watering the land with it. And if you look, all of that water leads back into the same place or moves off into new directions, as you can see down there, but it's all in balance. She is just the vessel of balance between the world and the subconscious, and that wonderful star shining down with all of those other stars. It's very peaceful, and there couldn't be a better outcome message for that. I think all of this is pretty self-explanatory, so I'm not actually going to take any more clarifiers on it, so we are going to move on to the Animal Oracle card, which I also pre-shuffled and picked, and this week we have this amazing card. These cards are so beautiful, I have to say. Crow Spirit, co-create with Spirit. Crow Spirit, co-create with Spirit. As you look around you, can you sense the magic that pulses through the world? Have you witnessed how every thought can become a thing? How every intention can call the universe into action as the sacred laws shape what you experience? The universe works in perfect order. When you align your thoughts, feelings, and beliefs with Spirit, you will want to crow with delight, feeling the excitement and wonder of being in harmony with something much larger than yourself. Crow Spirit says you are right on target now to see your dreams magically come into being in the visible world. The laws of abundance, compensation, frequency, and praise are operating in your favor now. Remember to be grateful and praise what is yours, even if it is still coalescing into form, still residing in the invisible realms of co-creation. No matter what area of your life you're concerned with now, what you hope for is on its way, for Spirit is your co-creation partner. Crow Spirit wants to know why you think there is no magic in the world, or do you believe that there once was, but it ran out, leaving nothing but ordinariness? Although conditions have become challenging, you have no reason to believe that everything you've set an intention for will elude you. Right now, the outer world is shifting. Can you feel it? Maybe you are fretting about experiencing the results of some of your poor choices of judgment from the past. Crow Spirit is here to remind you that you can always course correct and get back on track. Maybe you've been hit by a loss or disappointment as a result of an event that has absolutely nothing to do with your manifesting, yet it has shaken you to the core. Crow Spirit asks you to trust that no matter the temporary conditions, things will right themselves very soon. The law of balance makes it inevitable that this too shall pass. And what I forgot to tell you was that our underlying energy for the entire tarot reading was the Magician. And the Magician carries all of the elements of tarot. He has the wand, he has the cup. Oh, that's the wand. He has the wand, the cup, the pentacle, and whatever the heck that is in his hand. I don't know, a double-ended penis. And the Infinity 8 symbol above his head, and a very, very nice headband. And all that abundance from nature below. And again, look at the hand gesture. Beautiful. I think we're through the worst of it. So here we go. In conclusion, we have a very simple and short quote from Ralph Emerson, the American philosopher and lecturer and leader of the Transcendentalist movement of the 19th century. And the quote is, "To be yourself in a world that is constantly trying to make you something else is the greatest accomplishment." And I believe, looking back at everything that we've talked about today, that is probably the common thread of every thought. That we are coming into understanding our individuality. We are no longer in an individuation process, we are in a knowing process. And now it's up to us to go out and actually share that with the world without fear, without conditionality, and knowing what we love. And I love you. So have a wonderful full moon in Pisces, a wonderful Saturn moving out of retrograde, and I will see you next week. Bye.
Heartbeat as a dream to which I run. My heartbeat as a drum to which I come. To which I go. To which I go. The circle which I spin draws you. The circle it's you, it's you.